West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, June 23rd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and the hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up here in just a few minutes, John Decker traveling with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to the NATO summit at The Hague. It's going to give us insight what's next after this weekend's airstrikes on Iran. We'd love to involve you in this conversation as well. Or if you'd like to join us for the previous hour conversation on home rule, George Teal, Douglas County Commissioner, making the argument that you socialists and communists are the funders of the no on home rule side. Is he right about that?
Yeah, seems fair. Yeah, based on the information that we have, yeah.
Give us a call. No Kings, one of the organizations registering in opposition to home rule, or are there legitimate arguments against home rule, not rooted in communism? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Now it's time for News and Comment with Mr. Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Hey, good morning and happy Monday. 57 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 80 today. It's going to feel really chilly after those 100-degree temperatures we had over the weekend. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
The UN's International Atomic Energy Agency says U.S. strikes on key Iranian nuclear sites likely caused significant damage, but it's so far impossible to know how much. The nuclear watchdog agency held an emergency meeting today after the strikes, which used massive bombs, of course, to target the underground facilities. 47 scheduled to meet with his national security team today.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
And VP J.D. Vance on Sunday.
What we did is we destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. I think we set that program back substantially, and we did it without endangering the lives of the American pilots. That's an incredible thing, and I think we all should be proud. Whatever our politics, we should be proud of what these guys accomplished. A very, very high-impact mission under a lot of pressure.
The State Department has issued a worldwide caution security alert. U.S. citizens are being urged to exercise increased caution as tensions soar in the Middle East. Protesters rallied outside the state capitol on Sunday, speaking out against the airstrike.
The Iranian people are like people everywhere. They're victims in this situation.
And I just don't think that we need to be dragged into another war.
I don't believe that they have nuclear weapons.
Meanwhile, Jewish Colorado shared a message supporting U.S. strikes, calling it a show of unity with Israel in defense of the free world. A security guard shot and killed a gunman at a church in Wayne, Michigan, Sunday morning. Police responded to reports of an active shooter at Crosspoint Community Church in suburban Detroit. Officers arrived at the scene and found the suspect dead and one other person wounded in the leg. It was determined that a parishioner had also drove over him with their vehicle. No word yet. Yes,
I
there
still
you go.
love that.
Some
guy, some guy at church just plows over the dude.
Right. Amen. Amen. No word yet on a motive. We'll find out soon. The No Kings protests in Douglas
just on a side
County.
note, I'm very disappointed if that parishioner was not yelling very loudly, "Get behind me, Satan," at the same time. Just saying. I'm just saying that would have been perfect.
That would be. I'm going to start thinking of some hymns that will apply also.
Can we give Saturday Night Live some permission to bring back the church lady?
Oh,
in a skit on this, right?
Oh, yes,
I think
absolutely.
he's been making some cameo
Yeah,
appearances.
Dana
doing some
Carvey,
stuff, yeah.
the church lady
I think
plowing
that'd be
over.
good.
That would be funny.
Isn't that special?
Isn't that special? You want to come in here and shoot people? I'm going to run you over. Isn't that special?
I love it. No Kings protests in Douglas County were funded by communists from China. Douglas County Commissioner George Teal on with Jeff and Billy last hour says the House Oversight Committee tracked it.
It even landed in Douglas County, of all places. And it's been so active as an opposition to our home rule initiative. And it's just shocking. I mean, here's a nationwide, funded by China, funded by a communist organization that's actually trying to work against the people of Douglas County having a say in local control issues. It's amazing.
A dead body has been recovered at Watson Lake in Larimer County, where authorities have been searching for 80-year-old Larry Baker. The identity of the person or cause of death have not been released. The Oklahoma City Thunder have won their first ever NBA championship. The Thunder beat the Pacers last night, 103-91. Indiana lost Tyrese Halliburton early in the game with the injury to his knee. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander led the way with 29 points, 12 assists, and he earned the MVP of the finals. And he is the NBA MVP. 55 in Lakewood, 56 in Greenwood Village, 57 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It'll certainly be quite a bit cooler here to start the week. We're going to only be in the 70s today, partly cloudy to mostly cloudy. Scattered afternoon and evening showers and thunderstorms, lows tonight mid-50s. We'll get back to the 80s Tuesday, but Tuesday be ready for afternoon and evening thunderstorms. Tuesday, we could have severe weather with more thunderstorms, highs 80s Wednesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Bill, what do you think Iran does at this point? I mean, you have the Strait of Hormuz, and I'm seeing some traffic back up there. I mean, and I almost feel, Bill, like we were so far ahead of this thing because we even raised the question.
Yeah, would we?
Moments before the attack, or days or hours before the attack, and you and I received zero intelligence briefings.
Yes. Many people say we have zero intelligence, especially me. Yes.
And I just go, would anyone really miss Iran and its leadership right now if someone took it out? And you and I had that conversation. Lo and behold, like 6 hours later, Israel's like, now's the time. Jeff and Bill have given us the permission.
Yeah. Let's
and
see if anybody notices.
So my question now is, what do you do? I think everything was held back out of fear that a direct military strike on Iran would result in Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, Iraq responding against Israel. And we couldn't put Israel in that spot. So for 40 years, we just kind of danced around it. And lo and behold, October 7th takes place. October 8th, Israel starts going to work. And over the last year and a half has been picking these people apart. I mean, taking out not only the leadership, but severely weakening these operations in Gaza, in Lebanon. Syria's got a new leader over there. And so I think the U.S. went, all right, now's the time. Hit them. I mean, I was reading reports and watching the briefing on Sunday morning that Iran didn't even respond when the jets flew over. And it wasn't just the B-2 bombers. You had a full military operation going to Iran. Not a single bullet was fired at these guys.
Yeah. Well,
so what do you do if you're Iran at this point? You just, oh gosh. Yeah. I think here's my guess. The supreme leader ends up in Russia or China, probably Russia, similar to what happened with Syria, and slowly, my guess is slowly Iran begins to change. I don't think you'll have a big revolution with, some democracy dude elected like next week. I think it'll slowly start to shrug off this regime it's had for a long time. That's my guess.
I am much more pessimistic. I see no reason or effective way for them to get out from underneath the current regime at all right now, because those people still have the power. While it is shaken, they have more power than those that don't have power in Iran. So unless we're talking about an insurgency or some sort of rebel group, and then, of course, we can look at what has happened in Syria and also what happened in Iraq, that's not necessarily the best idea, because you may not like the person that replaces who you think you hated in the first place. So I'm real questionable as to what this idea of change of an Iranian regime change is going to look like. And it's really weird that Donald Trump floated that idea. And I'll get to more of this in a sec, but I want to share this really interesting story with you that I ran across maybe a week ago or so from the Jerusalem Post. They shared this story of a really unique way that the IDF managed the Iranian defenses, and especially the military, to make sure that when they started their original attack, their missile batteries couldn't respond. I don't know if you've seen the story.
Oh, please.
So what they did is the IDF, a couple of days before when they were going to launch their attack, started a campaign of misinformation, but they did it from inside the government. They had access to governmental channels of communication, and they sent out emails and text messages to the higher up the leadership of the individuals that are responsible for the Iranian missile defense. So when Israel flies in their bombers and flies in their planes and even their missiles, these guys would respond. They started a chain of command that there is going to be an emergency meeting that is held in this specific bunker, and it is a must-attend meeting. They even followed it up with a fake phone call 12 hours beforehand that you must be here. This is blah, blah. And again, they faked it through AI and everything else as far as the voice. So it was a phone call that sounded like it came from an actual source. All of their officials, all the top leadership of their air defenses were gathered in one bunker, and that was the very first target Israel hit. Before they hit anything else, it was there.
Man.
Yeah, so what happened inside of Iran was that as soon as the rest of the attack started, Iran ran around to get all of their generals in charge to launch, but there was
all in the bunker.
Yeah, there was nobody that could give the order. They were all dead.
Yeah, right.
So no one could give the order to defend the nation.
What do you think that moment was
That's
like
nuts.
when they're just look all around and they're like, "Oh no."
Yeah. Well, the weirdest...
We're all in one room together.
Well, the issue being that once you start talking around, like, who called this? I don't know anything. I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And the fact that none of you knew anything, I bet that there's a tipping point to where you get to a certain number of them inside the room, and they go, I'm not sure why we're here either. I'm not sure. And so people start picking up those cell phones and everything else, and then boom. Yeah, so that's something that I hadn't seen talked about. So before we get to our guest, John Decker, I wanted to talk about that because that's next level. Oh, yeah. And again, what I loved was the fact that they had worked inside internal governmental communications. They mastered that first in order to set the trap.
Together. Well, joining us now is John Decker. He's the White House correspondent. You know his voice regularly on this. He's traveling with the president weekend to the NATO summit at The Hague. So we're going to talk with him and also ask what's next after this weekend's airstrike on Iran. This is one of the things I love about this program. All right, so joining us now, John Decker. Good morning, John. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Thanks for having me. You know, I'm joining you, if you didn't know this already, from the Netherlands. And the reason why I'm here is because the president arrives here tomorrow for the start of the two-day NATO summit. Obviously, Iran's going to be the big issue on the agenda for each of the NATO allies taking part in this summit.
So many directions we could go here. Where do you think this is all going to go next? The president now talking about regime change, and people are having flashbacks to Iraq and Afghanistan with that same language.
Yeah, no, rightly so. Absolutely. You know, and so I think that there are 32 members of the NATO Defense Alliance. The most recent members are Sweden and Finland. Each one of those members want to get a sense from President Trump when he arrives here in the Netherlands what his goals are concerning Iran, short-term and long-term. And the best place to do it is face-to-face, and that's the reason why I think that each of those counterparts of the president very anxious to speak with him, in the aftermath of those airstrikes that happened over the weekend in Iran.
That's John Decker, White House correspondent. Have we seen a response from Iran outside of a few missiles launched at Israel? Have we heard anything from China, Russia, about how they may defend Iran in light of the attacks that took place over the weekend?
Well, Iran's in a very, very weakened state right now. You know, their air defenses have been decimated by Israel primarily over the course of the past 10 days. Now we know what the U.S. has done to those 3 nuclear sites. So they are in a weakened position. What our European allies, who are parts of NATO, are urging Iran to do is to go down the path of diplomacy and de-escalation, to negotiate. And what do they want them to negotiate? Negotiate an end to their nuclear ambitions. That's what the president is seeking. That's what President Trump wants. And there you have consensus with all of our NATO allies as it relates to that.
That's John Decker, White House correspondent, traveling to where the president is going to be later this week at The Hague in the Netherlands as President Trump joins NATO leaders, 32 of them, for a NATO meeting. So we're all watching with bated breath as to what could possibly be a response. Can you help us understand how close of an ally Iran might be with Russia or China? I know they kind of consider themselves allies, but not to the point of rushing to their defense like maybe Israel and U.S. are. Can you help us understand that dynamic a little bit?
Well, I think that that's right. The way you described it is accurate. They are allies in that regard, but they're not allies that they're going to go to the mat for Iran. I think that they're each of the leaders of China, President Xi, President Putin of Russia, they have to factor out what would it mean if they go all in for Iran. And there's a lot that they weigh. You know, they have to weigh their relations with other countries around the world, not just the U.S., but also those European allies of the U.S. that will be represented here at the NATO summit. So today, the foreign minister of Iran is meeting with his Russian counterpart. That doesn't necessarily mean that Russia is going to go to bat and defend Iran. It simply means that they are allies, so they will discuss what comes next. And, I think that what the White House is hoping what comes next is a negotiation with Iran for Iran to end its nuclear program and to come to the table to negotiate that exactly.
Well, these are the hours you want great reporting, and John Decker is doing that on our behalf. White House correspondent, thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show this morning.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
We'll continue to watch that and hopefully hear from John later. He's going to be with the president at The Hague. 32 NATO countries gathering together. This is a big deal. This is. I was talking to my mom yesterday. She goes, "What a time to be in news talk radio."
Yeah, Yeah, this has been different. This is going to be completely different. And I'd love to see if we can return to some of the conversation earlier, because we got a lot of response, and I'd love to follow up on some of the conversations about your reaction to what happened when you heard that we were dropping bombs on Iran. Would love to have your reaction to Donald Trump floating the idea of regime change. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? And the one thing that I need your help explaining to me this morning is, how is this America first? What am I missing? Donald Trump came to the stage during the previous election cycle talking America first. That was a message during his first administration, but this one, he leaned into it. This was America first. No more gallivanting across the globe and being the world's policeman and getting into endless wars. And remember when he graced the stage the very first time, he pummeled Jeb Bush on his support for the Iraq War. And that was all about going there in order to enact regime change. Now, Donald Trump, over the weekend, floated the same idea of regime change. What I need help with is understanding how this is America first. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. What am I missing about this? Because it seemed like Donald Trump was promising more of an isolationist worldview. This is far from it, especially when you talk about regime change. If I would have sat here on the Jeff and Bill show, say May of last year, and said, oh, what we know for certain is that if Donald Trump gets back into office within 6 months, he's bombing Iran. He's going to bomb Iran within the first 6 months. I would have lit up the phone as it's sitting right next to me, and people had gone, oh my God, you're crazy. Look at your TDS is showing. You're nuts. Don't you understand what Donald Trump is telling us? He's telling us no more foreign wars. He is telling us that it's America first. You stupid so-and-so, Billy. How can you be this dumb to not listen to what Donald Trump says? How could you possibly tell us that within the first 6 months of a Trump administration, he would be bombing Iran? Now, I didn't say that back then, but here we are. A year ago, this would have been talked about as Donald Trump derangement syndrome.
I think it's important in light of all this to remember it's been 40 plus years of dealing with an extreme administration controlling Iran, religious fanatics that want to bring Islam to the entire world. And the only reason we're at a point where we're striking Iran is because of the work of Israel over the last 16 months or so to pick apart what Iran had built over 40 years, which was Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, and that radical Islamist movement that was the greatest sponsors of terrorism internationally. Israel has picked it apart brilliantly to the point where right now Iran has almost no capabilities. And so Donald Trump was able to take advantage of that, take out this nuclear weapon building operation. This was not about nuclear power in Iran. This was always about building a bomb. Donald Trump coming in, finishing it off. But what I don't want, and I don't think Donald Trump wants either, is long-term U.S. occupation in Iran with the hopes that somehow it's going to turn into a democracy. So I'm intrigued as to what's going to come next. Woo, phone lines are filling up. We'll get to those in just a second. All right, let's talk Mountain High Appliance, guys. Discover incredible savings at Mountain High Appliance's Clearance Center in Denver. Mountain High Appliance Clearance Center offers huge selections of ranges, refrigerators, washers, and dryers, and more. Save up to, guys, listen to this, 60% simply on open box, scratch, or dent display models. Overstocked appliances from Bosch, Thermador, KitchenAid, and many more, all at their Clearance Center. When you're looking for great deals on appliances, think Mountain High Appliance Clearance Center for the best prices and selection. Here's their address. You ready? 601 East 64th Avenue in Denver. 601 East 64th Avenue, Denver, Colorado. All right, Bill, let's go to phones. Should we do Joe in Denver?
Yeah, Joe in Denver.
All right, Joe, you're up first. You're on with Jeff and Bill. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Hey, the best I have for America First and bombing Iran is the idea that America lost its exceptionalism, and we need to reaffirm our exceptionalism and reaffirm that we run the world.
Now, what I want to know about that, Joe, is remember during Donald Trump's campaign, he talked about, and I heard a lot of this from MAGA, that we shouldn't be the nation's police force. What I'm hearing from you is we need to be the world. Sorry, we need to be that we're not the world's police force. What I'm hearing from you is that we need to be the world's police force. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think we need to, but as far as the argument goes of what I think MAGA how MAGA justifies this attack and still gives his support is that they assume it's a one and done. America has established its dominance, and Donald Trump is, putting America first in not being bullied, not putting up with this anymore, not tolerating the delays and all that come in international affairs. He doesn't care that someone else is a sovereign nation. If he thinks it's something to do, he's going to do it. And in this case, as long as the unintended consequences don't result in a greater escalation, then he'll get away with it. And as much as I probably would not have done it in the end, if it calms down quickly, that is probably better for the world.
Now, Joe, I appreciate that. I appreciate that explanation. What happens if we take that exact verbatim explanation and we take out Trump and we insert Putin? We take out U.S., we insert Russia, we take out Iran, and we insert Ukraine. Haven't you just made the argument for Russia to invade Ukraine and take the territory?
You really have to look at the circumstances on each of those. Now, does Russia have justification? Was Ukraine an imminent threat? No, I don't think so. I don't think they could prove it. You could certainly prove that Iran has been lying about their nuclear program and ambitions for 30 years or more.
But Russia said they were a threat. That's why they went in there. That was exactly the expressed issue.
But wait, were there 40 years of funding terrorist attacks against Russia?
No, but they were part of Russia. But again, the idea is the argument being that if it's about safety, security, and that we're worried about a danger. Again, it was, remember, we heard, Jeff and Joe, we heard here on the show about, oh my gosh, this is going to be a NATO country on the border of Russia. We can't have that. Russia absolutely has the ability to defend itself then. We're making the same argument that we are based on America first. We just need to change it to Russia first. It's the same basic argument.
I think the facts on the ground are different. You have years and years and years, decades of Iran funding proxy wars through Hezbollah, the IEDs in Iraq, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, and the Quds forces supplied the explosives in Iraq in the IEDs. So you've had decades of Iranians killing Americans. I think the reason Trump finally moved was because of what Israel's done to weaken it, so that the response is basically nothing at this point. And Bill, I brought this up even before the attack. I don't think Russia, China, or many of the other Sunni or Shia Muslim countries really all care that much anymore about Iran and its regime. I think they're happy to see it go too. So I think this was a moment of opportunity. And I think you'll probably see some changes, but what I don't want to see, and I don't think a lot of people want to see, is a long-term U.S. occupation of Iran.
Yeah, and I would say that Putin saw a moment of opportunity as well. Same motivation. He saw a moment of opportunity. A weakened U.S., a weakened NATO.
Has Ukraine spent 4 decades attacking? Russians?
But
so
again,
I
but hang
see
on.
you're trying to point some similarities to it, but it's
I'm saying the justification is the same. I'm not talking about the causation. I'm talking about the justification that is put forward. The justification that we have for America first with this attack in Iran that Joe gave us is shockingly similar to the justification that Putin puts forth for Russia. Now, Joe, question for you. If we're talking about regime change, are you on board for regime change? And if so, how far does that support go? Is it support like money and help in Ukraine? Or are we going full Iraq? Are we putting boots on the ground in order to hold on to the, and I'm using air quotes, peace that we will set up in Iran? Because Israel doesn't have the personnel. They can't possibly hang on to a regime change. They need our help because they just don't have the people.
And that's the law of unintended consequences, and why I probably wouldn't have bombed Iran. But it's just going to have to play out. I don't know if they would devolve into a civil war, or if we would get super lucky and it would somehow just chase out the Ayatollah and you get a quick change in government with a group that wants quick stability, sort of like Syria. I wouldn't call Syria necessarily stable yet, but it's certainly not going into civil war right away. So maybe something like that could happen. The Iranian people are smart, pragmatic people, and it's this theocracy that is trying to force the rest of the world to capitulate. And they, I'm sure a lot of folks in Iran would like them to go, but I can't guess it. If I could,
I think that's, Joe, I think that's part of the not wanting to have a big occupying force is you have to just kind of go, well, it's up to the people to figure it out right now. But you try to build nukes and you're run by an Islamist regime, well, we might take out your capabilities to do that. This, in my mind, was a targeted attack. I don't see that the Trump administration's moving to long-term occupation, controlling who the next leader is going to be, all that stuff. So we might just have to live in this kind of unknown to see what happens next. Joe, Denver, sure, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Bill asking the good question. It's getting everybody fired up. Is the attack that took place over the weekend on Iran maintaining Trump's commitment to America first, or was it a neocon move? It's a good question. Comes from Bill Thorpe. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Mary, you're up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Lots of text messages as we discuss the bombing that took place of Iran over the weekend. 3627 saying, Bill, I love you, or I love that you're being the decanting opinion on the show.
Hey,
decanting opinion.
Well, sure, dissenting because
dissenting.
Okay, here's the
dissenting,
thing.
Decanting.
Can we all?
I thought they were making the argument that it's just like you just like float the smell out.
Yeah. Here's the thing is, okay, just on a total side note, can we agree that the digital virtual keyboards on our phones suck? They're atrocious. They're awful. They don't really work right.
Oh, because they were, the misspelling.
Because the thing for me is, I love my BlackBerry keyboard because it was physical, and I knew where the buttons were. I could touch the buttons. Now I misspell stuff all the time. In fact, I misspell some words so often, my Google Assistant thinks that I'm misspelling it correctly. So it changes, even when I get it right, it changes to the wrong word because I'm that much of a moron. I'm sorry. Now I'll get off my soapbox.
All right, 1514. I think of it like this: Trump eats breakfast every day. That's not America first, but it needs to happen. Okay, so the argument being that, maybe not everything that Trump is going to have to do as president of the United States fits within the America first box, but this needed to happen. We need to get rid of Iran's nuclear capabilities. So
that's fair, but keep in mind how I would have been viewed a year ago saying, Trump's going to bomb Iran because it needs to happen the first 6 months of his administration. Y'all would call me nuts. Y'all would have called in here and said, Bill's suffering from TDS. He's so crazy. Don't you understand what he's saying about America first? Yeah, I would have been called crazy.
A good reminder, too, 1983, the Beirut barracks bombing. Hezbollah, backed by Iran, killed 241 U.S. Marines in a suicide bombing in Lebanon. So we've been going back and forth with them for decades. Israel, in my mind, has weakened Iran to the point where there's not going to be much retribution. The other Middle Eastern countries are tired of dealing with the radical Islamists. Now's the time. Now's the time. That makes sense to me. America first. What I don't want to see and what I don't think Trump wants to do or the Americans want to see is long-term U.S. occupation, dealing with stupid IEDs for years and years on some desert that doesn't care about American values. So what's going to happen next? Well, the fact that we aren't trying to install people tells me that maybe we're still operating under America first mentality, and we'll just have to see what the people of Iran decide to do. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Mary, Wyoming. Good morning, Mary. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Just let me, whoops. Are you there?
Yes, we are. We got you.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm an America first, and I'm not into having continuous ongoing wars. However, I can also perceive that Trump waited over 6 months. All the tries, and it wasn't a matter that he walked in and did this all, did the bombings. In other words, he really tried to negotiate some type of settlement. So my concern is that us being so divisive doesn't help. If I was Iran, I would think that because we're so decisive, that I would try to take any opportunity to keep going. I mean, I would follow up with something because, in other words, America is so torn between whether we should or not. We don't know what Trump knows and why he made the decisions that he did. And yet we're all second guessing and quarterbacking on what should have happened.
Yeah, and that happens all the time, Mary. I mean, regardless of, there's always second guessing and quarterbacking, but I think what we can do is look at the presumption of the man when he was running and his supporters versus where we are now. Because the rhetoric that I heard in the election about MAGA, America first, we don't need to be involved in these international entanglements. What the hell is Joe Biden doing in Ukraine trying to get us into another world war? Why don't we do this? We need to focus at home. We need to focus at home. And now we're bombing Iran. Something that's been a dream of Bibi Netanyahu for 3 decades.
With Biden, everyone was, nobody criticized that he gave them $10 billion.
Oh yes, there was lots.
And let him
Were you
sell
listening to the
oil
show?
and support. No, you guys were not as you are intense on this right now, BS. I'm going to call the BS thing. No, this is so over the top. We are not anywhere supportive, and we don't know what Trump knows.
But is
and
this
why
America?
he made the
Tell me,
decision finally to do it.
But Mary, explain to me how this is America first. This is not what he sold us on in the election. This is not what I heard from the MAGA supporters, and none of this. Help me understand this. How is this America first when we go and bomb Iran and start talking about regime change?
We're talking about the change only because of the facts that's happened. I mean, things have changed, and that's what I'm saying. I'm an American first. I don't want any more wars, and I definitely don't want boots on the ground. Now, then I will have a different story I will talk to you about if we put boots on the ground.
Yeah.
However, I think that what he's doing now has to be done. And yes, there needs to be, and we could do it from the air. We don't have to be putting boots on the ground. That's the whole thing. I do not want American blood spilled.
But aren't we in a war now with Iran? We just did a strategic strike inside their territory with our military.
And
Doesn't
it
that
depends
qualify?
upon their response. It is now on their court. What is their response? And
Guys,
then
I will tell you this. This is what I want to see today. I want to see Donald Trump come out, do a press conference, and talk about how beautiful Trump Tehran is going to be. He's going to build a Trump Tower in Tehran. He's going to have a golf course. It's going to be beautiful, fantastic, and America is going to have all this oil money that comes in. That's what I like to see
and the only way
today.
we get there, and the only way we get there is if we have American boots on the ground securing the peace. Which again, we haven't talked about this. Who's securing the nuclear material? I'm curious about that one as well at this point, because that's out in the wild.
And also, one of the things that Iran has done is they've closed the port of Hormuz.
Yeah, Strait of Hormuz.
Now, it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen. You know what I mean? What are we going to do about that? Those are the kind of things that I'm concerned with now. And those are and I want to know
Now, Mary, question for you. Is Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz the response that you were talking about? You were saying, let's see if Iran responds to Trump and Israel's actions. They're talking about closing the Strait of Hormuz, and they probably are. There's your response. Now, if we have an action,
more than the United States.
I know, Mary, but you were looking for a response. If we have action and response, are we now in a war?
Allies I think when they do the G7 summit, that's going to be something. In other words, we need to start adding the allies at this point. I keep saying, whether it's the money that we do to support Israel or other allies, then fine.
Now, here's the scary thing, Mary.
That supports the America First thing.
This worries me because we started with America First, and now we're talking about will Iran respond? And you, along with myself, agree that the Strait of Hormuz is a response. And now you're talking about getting more of America's allies involved in the action against Iran. That to me sounds like we're getting awfully close to a world war when we're involving other allies in a military action against
Iran. That this is not something that they need to do.
But
at this point, I think Iran rolls over. I don't think you see Russia or China really come to their aid. There's not a bunch of other Muslim countries that want to support them.
No, but why not?
I asked John Decker that same question, and John just goes, they're not in the same allied relationship that the U.S. and Israel have. They're allies, but are they going to rush to their defense? Is Russia going to hand Iran a nuclear weapon and go, now this will stop the attacks? No, they're just going to put together a press release.
How about this? And now, Mary, I want your opinion on this one. Mary, hang on. I want your opinion on this.
I want an opinion from you, Bill.
Okay, but hang on. Let me finish this. Let me finish this first, okay? We were just talking about why Russia or China might get involved and support Iran. And I have one word, and I want to get your response to this, Mary. Oil. What if Iran agrees to allow Russia and China access to their oil fields and to share in the profit? Is that enough of a carrot to bring either one of them to the table to support Iran, in your idea? What do you think, Mary?
I would not. I don't agree with that. The reason on why is that Russia and China are doing really well on getting the oil that they need. I mean, Russia is flush with oil. So in other words, I don't think that that's going to be enough to get them involved. And also, Bill, in other words, you keep talking about how for 50 years we've been calling the wolf thing. That your analogy was regarding the neighbor keeps shouting about we're going to beat you up.
It's Netanyahu. I say Netanyahu's doing that, not necessarily America. I believe Netanyahu has been doing that over Iran for decades, not necessarily America. Just personally,
but it's over Iran. I mean, Iran has been talking about how we're the devil and we need to not exist. And I'm sorry that they did how Iran funded the Israel October 7th issue. I think that says they are willing to go beyond just shouting.
Okay, that's fair. So then when we get into, possibly an armed conflict with them, you're okay with that. And that's fair. That's what I just wanted to get to. I want to get to the idea of, is this America first, and are we okay with regime change? Because it seems like 180 degrees away from where we started with Donald Trump's administration.
I really hope it doesn't come to that. But a lot of times Trump throws out stuff that just go, no, you can't do. And and it was part of his negotiation.
Yeah, that's fair. It is still part of the negotiation. Yeah. Iran still has the ability to respond here. And Trump sent a very strong message. All right, the art of the deal.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.
In Tehran. Mary, always appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Jeff and the Bill Show, because it's the problem. That's me. We are Denver's talk leader. I'm so much of a problem. News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. I'm posting on X right now. I asked ChatGPT to create Trump Tehran, a gleaming, golden, beautiful hotel. There's like mosques in the background, and then it's got a little girl in a hijab button at the bottom of it.
Ah, jeez. Good job, though. Good job.
Trump Tehran. Oh, it's going to be beautiful. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. Ken, Aurora. Good morning, Ken. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, guys. You know, I think this thing in Iran, well, I've just got a couple of comments, but it's easily an hour conversation or topic. But, you know, we're at the end of a long line of missteps or mistakes with that country. Like, I think it was Obama gave them $10 billion. And they said, well, it's his money. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Why would you embolden your enemy? Keep their assets. You know, that's part of just being smart or military doctrine. And then coming down to this attack that just happened that might not have, had we not given them their money, you know, we would have kept them in a weak position where they would have been less of a threat. And now here comes Trump. No matter what he did, it reminds me of a bully I used to work with. If you gave him, he was the kind of guy he'd say, this guy, he'll never give you a raise or some money or a bonus or anything. Then if you give it to him, he complains about, he's so cheap, you know, that's all he did. There's no winning with a regime like that because of the mistakes and mishaps that have already happened. Those have gone by the wayside. So now, what you going to do? If you didn't bomb them, they may very well have lit this place up. And now that you do bomb them, they're like, oh, you know, the ocean will be red with their blood.
Yeah, and Ken, it would have just been years and years of continued negotiations like we've seen for the past 40 years. That's why I think you can make a good argument that this was America first. Ken, sure appreciate it. We'll continue the conversation the next hour. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.